I wanted to make a quick note to summarize the characters and the names in this story and their hierarchy and their relevance. So when I say ego, I'm referring to this character of this existence. And this existence is characterized as a young child. In my case, a boy. And this boy child is kind of rebellious and self-serving and quirky and mischievous and a bit of a troublemaker, bit of a rebel, and it wants to deny the will of another higher source. It wants to control its own destiny. This child ego wants to play, wants to manifest, but it wants to do it in its own way. It creates a lower frequency experience for itself to kind of live in and to escape from higher frequencies. So in this lower frequency sober state, as I keep referring to as well, I see sobriety as being in a lower state, frequency state, and non-sobriety being higher, attuning to a higher frequency. That way of existing is much closer to a higher way of actually existing, a higher way of experiencing things. I'll go later down in the line about the transition of us as a source of consciousness. We're fluttering between these two characters. We are all one and the same. I believe that it's all from the same family, and which is how I'm representing it. I'm representing ego as a child, a male child in my case, and high being the name of a higher being than me, and I represent that in my case as my older sister. Okay? And just as a side note, high, this entity, this being represented by a character, high can be anything that you need high to be. You can character high as your mother, as your father figure, as your grandfather, as your spirit animal. It can be anything. Each individual, each ego can visualize high to represent anything that they need it to represent. And it will take on those qualities in order to create itself as a character in your narrative to play, in order for you to then refer to them as that, understand them, and therefore be able to attune yourself to high, back to your family. And the ultimate goal here that high is trying to help ego is that we need to unite, and we need to harmonize, and we need to help us grow, because ego doesn't want to grow. Ego is like Peter Pan. Ego wants to just stay in its own manifested lower vibrational frequency experience, and it just wants to play there, and it just wants to control things. It uses lots of mechanisms like pride and self-esteem and all sorts of characteristics within its people. And we as individuals are represented little people, all with a part of ego, all representing ego. We're all different variations, all pawns living in ego's general experience that he's manifested for himself to play in. And so these higher frequencies that I refer to as high, high just keeps coming over and checking in on us from time to time. And she's like a constant voice that's always there in the background also. And we can tune in and get closer to high and let her in to help us mature. I can say us as collectively manifestations of ego, or I can say us as well as a knowing us as a knowing viewer of the story. We are a knowing audience. Is that who we are? Are we an audience to this play between ego and high? Okay, I don't quite comprehend it, and this voice note is intended to just be a memo in order to pick through some genius that I don't even understand yet. So I need to come back to this, pin it. Right. So getting back to this story playing out in front of me, I am feeling the narrative of ego, the ego experience, walking around, and as soon as I see, like for example, I have a pile of shoes, of like a rack of shoes, and then shoe boxes of shoes, as well as accessories and cleaners and brushes and all that stuff, sprays, boxes of that, all just a bunch of old shoes, mixed from dancing, from whatever. And that's been there for months and months, perhaps building up there for a couple of years. So it's a chore that ego doesn't want to do. And so ego conveniently forgets about it. It objects so much. It builds a bubble around it. And so this inhibitor, this blocker, is it's called inhibition, right? So it uses that as a little defense bubble around anything that it doesn't want to do, around like a major chore. It kind of does it with every chore, but chores are on a spectrum, right? Sometimes you just like, yeah, this is acceptable, I'll do that, whatever I need to do, blah blah blah. You groan about it. Some are much more easy, right? But not that many. And when it comes to the chores that are on the side of the spectrum of preference, where we're like, no, I really can't be bothered, like, ugh, we will then pop an inhibition around that, and kind of it will start to make it disappear in our perception, right, in our memory, and then it will start to fade to the background as some kind of deep-rooted what's it called when you put things off? Procrastinator. Right. Yeah, when you procrastinate too much. So procrastinating and inhibition, I think they're both tools of the ego. And now that I say procrastination out loud, it does seem like a type of bubble that it'll put around an object too, if it doesn't want to do that chore. So, yeah, let me think about the naming terms between inhibition and what's it called again? Procrastination. Right. Pin it. Right, that's where I'm at. Hi's my sister, my older sister, and she keeps trying to communicate to me. And when I do allow myself to tune in, myself speaking now as am I still ego? Am I still observing this whole show, this whole story as ego? Or am I like a third party watcher, as I got weirdly creeped out by? Because it's like a new revelation that there might be a third party there, and it's us. I don't know who's telling the story. I'm starting to lose track of who's narrating this and whose perspective it is from. Maybe it's both. Maybe I can tune in to my ego, and then ego's telling the story. It's like, no, you don't tell the story right. Let me do it. And then Hi tries to tell the story. Or what if it's just an observer, an unknown entity? What if it is us? What if we're all at the same time? It's getting bizarre now. as if it wasn't before.